reporting that Republicans are now looking to make the case that the so-called Russia investigation was based on, quote, politically tainted evidence tied to Clinton loyalists. We'll explain. And meanwhile, tonight, an all-out war on what is the truth and transparency is being waged right here in the United States of America. Fierce, unfair opposition mounting, what? To conceal and cover up one of the biggest scandals in the history of this country. Now, Democrats, led by future MSNBC contributor Congressman Adam Schiff, they are desperately trying to block the memo from going public by lying and playing cheap partisan politics, and we have the evidence. And tonight, Sarah Carter is reporting that the FBI director, Christopher Wray, and the DOJ want all names redacted in the classified document, and the media is proving just how abusively biased, agenda-driven, and corrupt they really are. And that is tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, breaking right now, truth and transparency are under assault in our country. Democrats, the liberal media, they're now peddling their lies and conspiracy theories about President Trump with impunity. Now, it has now reached the point where they want to hurt the president so badly that they're now turning on we the people, the American people, and they refuse to pursue what is truth with all the evidence that they can muster. Now, in their panic, they are trying to utterly destroy the people that are exposing the single greatest threat to our constitutional government in our lifetime. Now, here's why. It has been a year of hell for this country. The media has been lying the whole time. They have been pushing propaganda, conspiracy theories about Trump-Russia collusion, even though evidence does not exist. It's a fabrication. It's constructed in their liberal media echo chamber and then falsely repeated over and over again. They may even believe their own lies. Now, the media has carried out this lie even though top-ranking Democrats and national security officials have all said there's no collusion. In case they forgot, let us do their job and remind them.
The allegation, of course, is that the Russians in the hacking and dumping of documents in the election had essentially relationships with Trump campaign people. But I'm not prepared to say that there's proof you could take to a jury.
Do you agree with this conclusion that the president has reached, that there was no evidence of collusion?
You know, we haven't seen any of that whatsoever, George. We've been looking and showing everything that they possibly have. That has not led to that.
The last time we spoke, Senator, I asked you if you had actually seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and you said to me, and I'm quoting you now, you said, not at this time. Has anything changed since we spoke last?
Well, no, it hasn't.
I know we need to go soon, but just to be clear, there has been no actual evidence yet.
No, it has not been.
At the time I left, I did not see any smoking gun certitude evidence of collusion.
No evidence, no evidence, and they've been focused on perpetuating something they know is a lie. Now, we've been slowly uncovering a massive American scandal that makes Watergate, the Pentagon Papers, look like minor infractions. Now, Fox News is reporting tonight that President Trump has, in fact, reviewed the 4-page classified memo that exposes massive and severe FISA abuses against members of his campaign and then his incoming cabinet. And sources are telling us the memo will, in fact, be released tomorrow. Now, as you can imagine, after a year of lies and painting a false narrative, Democrats and the media, they are now hyperventilating and breathlessly doing everything they can possibly do to discredit and stop the memo from being released. What are they so afraid of? Let's start with the MSNBC conspiracy host in training, Congressman Adam Schiff. He went running to all his liberal allies in the media, like Paul Revere, claiming that the memo sent to the White House had been, quote, secretly altered and the, quote, material changes were made. Now, in Schiff's twisted mind, this means that the memo wouldn't be able to be released to the public because House rules were violated. And the media goes into full hyperventilation mode, and they were ecstatic. And they were all wrong. We'll explain that in just a second. But first, just take a look at what's happening.
Devin Nunes apparently feeling the heat of those criticisms, and according to Adam Schiff, going to the point of making material changes in the memo.
The thing has been a parade of depredations, on which is this the kind of the cherry on top of that Sunday.
Now you actually have Devin Nunes, who made a fool of himself going down to the White House with no information. He was a courier for Donald Trump. Now he's coming forward, and as you said, they have cooked facts in a memo.
Devin Nunes altered the memo.
That's what Adam Schiff says.
Not only that, it's what Devin Nunes' people say. He either altered it a little or they altered it a lot, which is what Adam Schiff's people say, for editorial reasons and to water it down before sending it to the White House. Either way, okay, they altered it. Isn't there protocol?
See the echo chamber? You got the liberal congressmen and the liberal media, and they echo each other. Wow, big surprise, and they're wrong. Schiff is lying. Our own Catherine Herridge reporting tonight that edits made to the memo were for A, grammar, and B, clarity, and additional edits, the ones that were done, were requested by the FBI to protect sources and methods, and at the request of Democrats, meaning people like Adam Schiff on the House Intelligence Committee. Now, this part is very key, and I hope Adam Schiff is listening because he apparently was rushing to an MSNBC interview when the memo was being updated. All of the edits were made before the memo was sent to the White House for review and not after, like Schiff is claiming. Now, in typical Democratic distraction fashion, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're all doing their best to disparage the memo and attacking House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, and they're demanding that Nunes be removed from his position. And their liberal colleagues are also attacking the memo. Notice they all sound alike. One big lying echo chamber. It's amazing. Propaganda.
The release of this memo is really reminiscent of the darkest days of the McCarthy era with character assassination. It endangers methods and sources of the intelligence community.
All you need to understand is that the Republicans declared war today on our national security.
Well, the main concern I have is that most of the allegations in the memo are simply not true.
If he were to release that memo, he would not only be endangering our country, but he would also be violating the rules of the Congress of the United States.
We don't cherry pick classified information and publish it to give the country a misleading impression to protect the president's hide.
All right, the liberal media is following their commands from their Democratic allies because they're one big group together, and all they have in the media is an extension of what the Democrats want. They're also trying to slam the memo. Why are they so afraid of the memo? Watch this.
He and his Republican allies are preparing a frontal assault on this country's law enforcement institutions. The Trump attack hinges on a memo that Trump's Republican minions on the House Intelligence Committee voted to release on Monday.
John Kelly says he wants everything out, even if the FBI says it's a dumb and dangerous idea. Republicans may get their memo released today, but it will not be the last shoe to drop.
They go and say basically this memo is a pack of lies, and yet we are still right now on track to have it released.
This is a tipping point for our democracy. Are we going to be a democracy after today, or is this going to be demagoguery and despotism?
This is something that could haunt this White House in the months to come.
This is something that will haunt this country if we don't fix what has happened, which I'll be explaining. And even disgraced former FBI Director James Comey, well, he's trying to get in on the action. And tonight, Comey tweeted, "All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field so long as good people stand up. Not a lot of schools or streets are named after Joe McCarthy." By the way, the last thing we need are lectures from Jim Comey. And by the way, Jim, just a reminder, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And Jim Comey needs to be put under oath. He needs to be questioned. And Jim, I want to know why you exonerated Hillary Clinton months before you did the investigation, before it ever took place. And Jim, what do you know about Trump-hating FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? And Jim Comey, what do you know about Andrew McCabe waiting 3 weeks to alert Congress about the emails that had been found on Anthony Weiner's laptop? And by the way, what did you know and when did you know about Hillary Clinton's paid-for dossier? Did you know it was phony, Jim? And did you know it was bought and paid for by an opposition party candidate? Did you know it was presented to a FISA court? Did you pay Christopher Steele? Did you want to pay Christopher Steele, the former British spy that put it together with Russian sources that he likely paid? So, Jim, let's cut the sanctimony. What is going on today happened on your watch. And with all due respect, I don't see any streets in the future being named after James Comey. But if I was you, Jim, I'd be saving these comments for your lawyers. Now back to the memo that we hear will be released tomorrow. Sources are telling us tonight that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The memo is only 10 to 15% of information that will be coming out the days, weeks, and months ahead. Tonight, John Solomon of The Hill is reporting Republicans are looking to make the case that, in fact, the Russia investigation that we have been highlighting and special counsel Robert Mueller's probe were based on, quote, flawed or politically tainted evidence connected to partisans loyal to Hillary Clinton. Now, that would mean the entire thing was based on Clinton bought and paid for lies. And if the media had any ethical standards left, and if they really cared about truth, if they cared about the American people, if they believed in transparency, they would have been all over this story demanding on behalf of the American people that the memo be released. Now, let's put this in a little historical context here. I want to show you a couple of examples. Let's go back. Remember Watergate, third-rate break-in, trying to get op research from the headquarters of the other party in a presidential election, and then you lie and cover it up. A president was removed from office and had to resign over that. Here's how the media covered Watergate. Then they were a little different, not as partisan as today.
As you probably know by now, 7 persons were indicted today for trying to cover up the Watergate scandals. Overshadowing what happens to those 7 men is the more important question: what does today's development mean for Richard Nixon? For the President of the United States, is the worst now over or only beginning?
The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history.
History shows the American people will put up with a great deal, even when the demands on them are outrageous, as they often are. But they will not put up with anyone who claims to be or tries to be above the law, immune to the rules applying to everybody else. It seems to be known instinctively that if anyone acquires that privilege, it'll be the end of this country.
Is Hillary above the law? Do we have a dual justice system? Do we have equal justice under the law? Compare that coverage to what we showed you earlier about how the media is now trying to malign, ridicule a memo detailing a major FISA abuse against an opposition party during a campaign. This scandal, in the end, will make Watergate look like a parking ticket. And members of Congress that have seen the memo say it shocks the conscience. Yet the media doesn't want you to see it and seemingly doesn't care as they do the bidding for the Democratic Party like they have done for a year, pushing a false Trump-Russia narrative that has no evidence. Now, the media is now actively working and in concert with the Democratic Party. They're working to prevent you, the American people, from seeing what's in the memo. Let the memo speak for itself and you decide. And all of this proves is that the news media, they don't seem to care about civil liberties. We do have constitutional protections, the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure, and the media have just become shills and hacks for the Democratic Party. They're only focused on undermining and destroying President Trump, whatever they could possibly find or do or make up. Here's another historical comparison. Remember the Pentagon Papers? That exposed how the American government, especially the Lyndon Johnson administration, lied to the public about the country's involvement in Vietnam for decades. Now, the New York Times and the Washington Post at the time, they fought all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court for the right to publish those classified documents. And guess what? They won. And guess what? The truth was exposed. But now the media is doing the exact opposite. They want the memo kept secret, which is pathetic. And they're doing a great disservice to you, the American people. Instead of pushing for truth, they're now trying to attack anybody that is trying to expose the biggest case of abuse of power we have ever seen in our lifetime. And people that are trying to be transparent and let you see the truth are under attack by the press and the left that has now aligned themselves. They're one in unison now. There's no separation between left-wing liberal politicians and your media. No line of separation. The media is a bunch of willing accomplices and basically propagandists desperately trying to change the narrative. They've been wrong for an entire year. Here's what they won't tell you. This is what this all comes down to. The scandal starts with Hillary Clinton. They don't care. She rigged, Donna Brazile, head of the DNC, rigged a primary against Bernie Sanders. Imagine if Donald Trump did that in the Republican primary. Then corrupt officials, James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and Andrew McCabe, and probably Loretta Lynch, they put the fix in, protecting Hillary Clinton with an exoneration before an investigation, even though we know she mishandled and destroyed classified information and broke the law. From there, Clinton took that idea of rigging primaries and then tried to apply it to the general election. Hillary Clinton's campaign and the money she controlled through the DNC, they spent over $12 million for what turned out to be unverified, totally false, a dossier filled with Russian lies to influence and lie to you, the American people. Then, this is where it gets interesting. Then that Clinton bought and paid for dossier was then taken by senior Obama administration FBI officials, not rank and file, we love them, and used in part, and this is what we will learn tomorrow, to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on members of the opposition party, the Trump campaign. In other words, they politicized and weaponized America's powerful tools of intelligence to spy on an opposition campaign during an election year and shredding the Constitution in the process. How do you people in the media not care about this? And then they used it to spy on an incoming presidential, transition team. And then beyond that, how bad is it? We'll talk to Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. All right. It all starts with Hillary, rigs a primary, gets exonerated without an investigation. We know she broke laws, 18 U.S.C. 793.
793.
Okay. Then she pays for Russian propaganda, Russian propaganda, to lie to the American people because we know it's full of lies. Then the lying dossier is used to obtain a FISA warrant. That's what we're learning tomorrow. How is this not bigger on a scale on steroids and human growth hormone than Watergate?
It should be so much bigger, and people should be so very concerned about this. Sean, what bothers me most is the fact that they don't even want the memo, and I'm talking about some people in the mainstream media, the Democrats and others that are trying to stop this memo from becoming public. I have spoken to people intimately involved with this memo. There is nothing in the memo, they say. These are people within the intelligence community. In that memo that would expose the intelligence community, the national security apparatus of the United States, what is going to expose, it is a domestic problem that has been unearthed and uncovered. But let's go back. What about the dossier? Everybody was selectively leaking over the last year information on Michael Flynn, highly classified information.
Illegal.
Illegal and a crime.
Yes.
And nobody's been charged with that yet. There was selective leaking on Attorney General Jeff Sessions, on Eric Prince. Let's go back and look at all of this and the dossier.
Here's my question. If Donald Trump paid for a phony Russian dossier, millions of dollars, to lie to the American people in a campaign, right, and then the dossier is used to get a FISA warrant on Hillary. Okay, how would the media in America react to that?
The media would have stormed the White House and taken him into handcuffs. Look, the fact is that there are plenty of villains to go around, top officials at the FBI, Rod Rosenstein at the Department of Justice, but lately the biggest villain is Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the Intel Committee. He was spent months trying to suppress
he lied about
this
Nunes
information. And now he is trying to misrepresent the truth and the law by mischaracterizing the changes in the memo as a pretense for stopping it. This isn't a war against the FBI. This is an attempt to hold people in government accountable for their wrongdoing. And Adam Schiff knows that. He knows the rules, and he is aiding and abetting the cover-up of potential crimes.
Okay. You have more information. We're going to actually, why don't you explain what you were telling me earlier tonight that's coming?
Well, I think what we're going to see was a concerted effort, like you said, Sean, to use the dossier in order to verify the warrant. And I think it's going to go beyond that. I think that the FBI, what this memo is going to expose, is that the FBI used other information in an effort to get that warrant.
Did they know it was false? Did they know Hillary paid for it?
I believe they did know it was false, and I know that they knew Hillary paid for it.
And did they know that the information was fed to somebody else?
Absolutely.
Christopher Steele. So they basically tried to
Christopher
source the
Steele
same information
from the same
and we'll learn that
vantage point.
tomorrow.
And we absolutely will learn that tomorrow.
So the FBI knew that they were telling a court false information, paid for by an opposition candidate.
Absolutely.
Meaning the top echelon, not rank and file. We love you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is about cleaning up house. There are a lot of FBI agents out there, former and current FBI agents.
Oh, they're on my side. They're writing me every day.
Exactly. And they want to see this cleaned up.
Yeah.
And they want to stop with the partisan politics and just see this cleaned up right now.
Every lawyer in America knows you cannot go before a judge and solicit a warrant on an affidavit based on a false document.
They knew Hillary paid for it, correct?
Correct.
They knew she paid for it.
Especially if you know that the people behind it had nefarious reasons, political reasons. The judge in this case who signed that warrant should be outraged and hold the people in contempt. I think,
can he do it when it's released and he discovers for sure?
He can absolutely do it. He can haul the litigants, the lawyers, DOJ.
Why did you give me false propaganda from another campaign?
Court and say, answer me these questions and bring your toothbrush with you.
So the whole country's been held hostage over a phony narrative because of a Clinton paid-for dossier lie. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. And if they want to accuse, and I'm talking about the Democrats and others, of the Russians won here.
Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. Absolutely and completely fair. And it's worse than that. They never had a basis to even begin the Trump-Russia investigation. They violated the Department of Justice laws.
Thank you both. Tomorrow's a big day. We will have full coverage. We're just getting started tonight. Michelle Malkin, Mike Huckabee are next. We're being told the classified FISA memo will, in fact, be released tomorrow. Here with reaction, former Arkansas Governor, Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee, and the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates, CRTV, a big hit show. Michelle Malkin, I don't ever get to see you, and we're related. I mean, this is ridiculous. How are you? It's so good to see you.
It's a reunion. It's great to see you,
I'm so happy about your daughter, as we talked about on radio today. Thank God she's doing so well, going to college. We're really proud of her and proud of you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Okay, you're following this story.
Yes.
Imagine it's Trump. Donald Trump pays for a Russian propaganda dossier. That dossier is used to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on Hillary.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Of course, you'd have all the watchdogs, those crack investigative reporters, clamoring for as much transparency and sunlight. And what are they doing when the tables are turned? They're the obstructionists. I cannot tell the difference between the liberal Democrats' tweets and the mainstream media's tweets.
No, they're one and the same.
Yes.
I mean, but it's never been this bad. They wanted truth in Watergate, to their credit. They wanted to get to, maybe because it was a Republican. In this case, they want to prevent truth because this is the biggest scandal I think we've seen. Governor Huckabee, you're also a historian. I know you love history. From a historical perspective, compare this to Watergate. Compare a third-rate burglary cover-up into opposition, phony Russian propaganda research, bought and paid for, then being used as a basis for a FISA memo, a FISA warrant against the sitting, well, then a candidate, then a sitting president, and what havoc it has wreaked on this country for a year.
Well, first of all, this to compare to Watergate, Watergate was a fraternity prank compared to this, because this goes to the heart of the highest levels of law enforcement. It's bad enough when campaign aides do things that are nefarious and wrong, but when you have the people who carry badges and guns and have the power to take away people's personal liberty, put them in jail for the rest of their life, now you're dealing with something that goes to the very heart of the most fundamental constitutional protections that Americans ought to be able to expect. What I don't understand, Sean, is why that there's not a unified outcry and a demand to see what really happened from Democrats, Republicans, independents, and a true and free press. But we don't have a free press.
We're going to learn tomorrow that the FISA warrant, in part, the foundational argument, in part, was the phony Clinton Russian paid-for dossier. I mean, it takes my breath away. If it was Trump paying for phony Russian propaganda for Hillary and then that being used as a FISA warrant in part, what would the reaction of this country be now? It would be so vastly different.
It would be. And the fact that we're not getting a different reaction, and they still want to talk about some Russian meddling, Sean, there's no evidence of that. And I'm not so worried now about did the Russians meddle in the election. I'm worried, did the FBI and Department of Justice meddle in the election? That's what ought to be of far graver concern to Americans than anything else that has been alleged toward some Russian involvement.
It seems when Comey and Strzok and Page, who hate Trump and all the names they've called him, McCabe with their insurance policy, have you ever heard of an exoneration being written months before you investigate and interview the key participants in a crime, potential crime?
And the whole thing is just such a bizarro soap opera with bizarro Romeo and Juliet there tweeting and texting each other. And then what we're dealing with here, Sean, is the fundamental corruption of our core intelligence infrastructure. And it wouldn't have happened.
Weaponizing intelligence.
Exactly.
As a political weapon.
As a political weapon, and it wouldn't have happened without the parallel corruption of the media. What we're talking and what we're seeing here is the death of true, honest, investigative journalism. And it's been left to people like you and your team and a few lonely people with integrity who are never treated as journalists, right? I mean, it's these lapdogs who get to determine who is doing journalism or not. There's no credential for doing journalism. It is the pursuit of truth wherever it leads.
Well said. I cannot say that any better. What do we do at this point, Governor? Because when you, especially as it relates to Robert Mueller, because if you take away all of this, I argue there is no Robert Mueller, there is no special counsel, that all of that you can connect to the phony dossier, then to the phony FISA warrant based on lies, paid for lies.
The one thing we need is truth. Jesus said it best, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free.
Amen.
What I don't understand is why won't the Democrats let this stuff come out? Why don't they push it out? If it is what they say, which is nothing, just a bunch of stuff, then they ought to be demanding that it be put forward so the American people could see it for nothing. The reason they're so resistant to this information coming out is because many of them, particularly Schiff and others, they know what's in it. And they're scared to death that it's going to expose all that they've been lying about for more than a year. And that's going to put them in a real difficult position to try to defend what they and the people they've been protecting have done to the American Constitution. And I want to make clear, this is no longer about Donald Trump. Like him or hate him, this is not about him. This is about whether our Constitution is going to be followed and whether all Americans are protected under the same law or not, and whether law enforcement agencies can target us based on our political views. And if that happens, we've lost this great republic.
We got 20 seconds, Michelle. Last word.
Well, the Schiff has hit the fan, hasn't it? You know, Justice Brandeis also said it best. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. And there's been a dark cloud that has hung over these intelligence agencies, and they don't like the light.
It's so good to see you in studio. I'm so happy for you and your family. Thank you for being with us. And Governor, thank you. Very profound comments. This country is in a crisis that it doesn't know about. It will know more tomorrow. When we come back, Ed Henry has a report from the White House. Jesse Waters, Jessica Tarlov, and much more. Stay with us tomorrow night. Also, a big night. Hope you'll join us. All right, President Trump making big news during two separate speeches he gave to Republicans today. Joining us now from the White House with more, Fox News Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. Is tomorrow release the memo day?
Sean, that's what a senior White House official suggested to us a short time ago. That's obviously going to be a big story. And in fact, I spoke to a senior Republican a short time ago who pushed back on these reports, suggesting that maybe the memo will be less than has been hyped up, saying that there are 4 separate revelations in the memo that have not leaked out. So that's something we will be watching very closely. As you noted, though, the president also trying to conduct other business, particularly his domestic agenda, and made some news on immigration. A few moments ago, you saw him there at this RNC event at the Trump International Hotel, his own hotel here in Washington. He declared he's open to a deal on DACA, but insisted Democrats have not moved an inch in terms of either DACA or working with him on cracking down on illegal immigration. The president suggested it's because Democrats won an issue in 2018. He said if that's the case, he's going to turn it around on them in the midterms. He also expanded on that headline-grabbing comment where he said in the State of the Union, Americans are dreamers too. Today he said Republicans should stop calling the kids of illegal immigrants dreamers because it's a trap to make illegal immigration seem less ominous. And then you see those pictures of Nancy Pelosi. He told lawmakers today, the president, that he was stunned that Pelosi and other Democrats did not applaud when he noted African-American unemployment has reached a new low. He blasted Democrats as what he called stone cold when it comes to the economic recovery.
We were waiting for February, and then we got hit with these corporations giving tremendous bonuses to everybody that Nancy Pelosi called crumbs. That was that could be like deplorable. Does that make sense? Deplorable and crumbs? Those two words, they seem to have a resemblance. I hope it has the same meaning. But she called it crumbs when people are getting $2,000 and $3,000 and $1,000. That's not crumbs. It's a lot of money.
Interesting, because today Hostess Brands, which actually makes Twinkies, announced they're giving their workers a $750 cash bonus, plus an extra $500 in their 401k plans. The House Majority Whip Steve Scalise joked today it's a matter of time before Democrats start realizing an economic recovery is baked in the cake, Sean.
I love Twinkies. All right. Thank God they saved the company. All right, Ed Henry, thanks for being with us. Joining us now with reaction, the co-host of The Five, the host of Water's World. It's his world. We live.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. Look, to me, there's only one story. Let's imagine for a moment Donald Trump and his campaign pay $12 million, thereabouts, for a dossier filled with Russian lies, Russian propaganda, misinformation, to lie to the American people to influence a campaign, but even worse, then that is used in part to get a FISA warrant on Hillary. How would you feel?
Him to imagine
No,
it?
how would you feel about that, Jessica, the liberal?
Well, all right, fine, I'll take it. If that's what had actually happened, then I would feel terrible about it. But that's not actually what happened.
It actually is.
No, it's actually not.
How do you know?
I know because I can read.
Did you read the memo?
Well, no, not the memo. No one's read the memo.
Well, this is a tag team. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's completely unfair every week. 1 second. Basically, no one has read the memo. I know the president has now. We know that.
By the way, people in the media were saying that I'm advising him on the memo. First of all, you can't advise this president. He's such his own man. You can't tell him not to tweet.
Yeah.
He follows his own ways.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
And I'm saying it every night. Call your congressman. Release the memo. Yeah. Hello? Go ahead.
How I understand it from all the sources that I've read, not about the memo, I'm talking about the Steele dossier, is that the FBI certainly had it, corroborated elements of it, and that's what they used. We also don't know if they used that to get the surveillance warrant on Carter Page, who was under surveillance since 2013.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
They used it, I know for a fact, and we'll learn tomorrow.
Well, we're going to learn tomorrow. You know, the left doesn't like dirty cops on the street, and then you have dirty cops in the swamp, and they're okay with it.
You guys
I thought you guys were okay
law enforcement.
with congressional oversight. You're supposed to be okay with transparency.
I am.
I think it was Barack Obama that said, if you don't want the truth to come out, you have something to hide. What do you guys have to hide?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the memo.
Why don't you?
You don't want it to come out because you're doing everything you can to make sure it's not released.
Well, I'm not doing everything that I
Pelosi
can.
wants Nunez fired. She doesn't even know his first
He should have been
name.
fired a long time ago. He was the guy, remember, who ran up to the White House and broke into the fake information.
Well, it seems like you guys are the ones obstructing justice here.
It doesn't seem like that
because
at all.
you guys don't want the truth to come out. And as a journalist, Jessica, you should want more information, not less.
I absolutely would, and I would certainly love to know what's in that memo so I could deal with you two on it. But
keep going.
We'll know tomorrow.
We'll know tomorrow.
I'm excited.
Let's just assume for a minute that what I said is true.
Okay.
Let's assume, well, we do know there were salacious lies. Let's say Donald Trump produces a memo that says Hillary Clinton had hookers in her room in a Ritz hotel in Moscow urinating on her bed. Now, if that was in there and it was not true, and then it ends up being the basis in part for a FISA warrant against her used by Trump, you'd be pretty pissed off.
Absolutely.
And the media would be apoplectic tonight, true or false?
Absolutely. By
Sure.
the way, this is the only show that I've ever been able to talk about the pee tape on. So that makes me
And
really
you know
happy.
it's not true.
You know
because
it's not
if
true.
someone pees in the bed, where are you going to sleep?
Well, I don't think
We're gonna sleep.
I don't think he's having a sleepover.
It's obviously
with them.
not true. That
I think
doesn't
it's
make any
transactional.
sense.
I don't think it's a cuddle fest.
All right, but here's what else we're going to learn. We're going to learn that the FBI, I believe, knew that the dossier wasn't true. And they did it anyway, and they allowed it to be used anyway. Let's say let's say, just hypothetically, we'll be able to do a real life show tomorrow. Let's say that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
Then those people who
If the
did
FBI knew, did they abuse their power by bringing it to a FISA court? Yes or no?
if they knew that they were taking factually inaccurate information
To a
of
court.
a presidential candidate to a court to get FISA warrants to spy on members of his team, then
I'm
they
holding you
absolutely
to this.
shouldn't
There
have
we
their
go.
jobs
We have
anymore.
our own tape saying that exactly.
But
and I
that-
can't
any
tell.
normal person would
do you
say
guys
that.
like the FBI? Do you hate the FBI? When they were going after Hillary, you hated the FBI.
No, actually, I
And
was
then they
generally
cleared her,
confused.
and then you loved them. And then they came out with the emails right on the eve of the election. Then you hated them. Now they're opening up an investigation
didn't-
of Trump.
Okay.
You love them again. I can't
Let's
figure
try
it
this
out.
game for you. Over the summer, when Jim Comey came out there and he non-indicted her and said all those crappy things about her that then carried over.
All right,
when
I
you
gotta
look at
run.
the poll,
By
I
the
was
way-
just getting started.
You
got to go quicker than that.
It's his world. You live in it. Remember that.
I remember it every week. Maybe next week it can be my world.
Okay,
and I'll
we'll
get
make
like a dance.
We'll make an exception for next week. Rush Limbaugh sounding off on the FISA memo. That's next, straight ahead. So earlier today, Rush Limbaugh had some very wise, harsh words for those trying to block the release of the FISA abuse memo. Watch this.
What's the big deal with his memo? If Trump is guilty, if Trump did all this, why are they worried about a memo detailing how they did it? If Trump did it, if Trump colluded, if Trump did all this horrible stuff, if Carter Page did all this horrible stuff, if Stephen Miller did all this horrible, if Melania Trump did all this horrible stuff, if Donald Trump Jr., if Eric Trump did it, if Barron Trump did all this horrible stuff, why in the world is the FBI so afraid of people finding out how they got it? Why is the FBI, why are the drive-bys, why is the Democrat Party so worried, so concerned about how they got there? I've gone through as much of this as I can absorb before it all starts to turn into a blue, purple, murky haze. And I can't find any good reasons to not disclose this memo.
That's great. By the way, when I do radio, microphone's here. How does he do it from so far away? I guess that's why he's number one. I don't know. Here was reaction. Former Utah Congressman, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Okay, I think this is what we're going to get tomorrow. This is why they don't want it. Because the phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier was used in part to get a FISA warrant. It's Russian propaganda, Congressman.
Yeah, I think we're also going to start to see the financial trail, who was paying for it, how it was financed, who was moving along. I'm worried that it's actually broader than just the FBI. And remember, this Peter Strzok character, this is the chief of counterespionage. He was the assistant director for counterintelligence. He's using a non-secure phone to send 50,000 text messages to his mother, who he's having an affair with.
And they
if you don't
hated
think the
Trump.
Russians, the Chinese, and everybody else, and the Russians, the Chinese, and everybody else don't already know about it, the American people are going to be actually the last ones to hear about it.
The irony of Hillary paying the Russians, paying for Russian propaganda in the end, and then that you used to get a warrant to spy on her opposition candidate in an election year, Tom Fitton. You deal with government corruption all the time. Ever deal with anything this big?
No, I've been doing this for 20 years at Judicial Watch, and I saw the FBI files go over to the Clinton White House, the Chinese generals go into the White House, but never did we see the powers of government being used to spy on a political opposition like this, or at least any information that we had to date. And I know why the Democrats don't want this to come out. Hillary Clinton helped pay for this, her campaign. The Democratic National Committee also helped pay for this dossier, which was used by the Democratic administration. So you've got the Democratic Party upset about news or confirmation that Democratic Party money went to help the FBI spy on its political opposition. And James Comey, who went to the president directly, President-elect Trump directly, with this dossier and threw it in his face in a private meeting. Did he tell the president that it had been paid for by Hillary Clinton? And remember, that precipitated ultimately in his firing and the appointment of Mueller, who by all accounts is still using this dossier to target Trump world.
That's the, at the end of the day, Congressman Chaffetz, that's it. That there would be no Trump, Russia collusion without all of these events, or the fact that if the FBI knew that this was Hillary Clinton paid for propaganda, and Comey, as we understand it, wanted to even hire Christopher Steele and pay Christopher Steele. We'll learn more about that too. And did Rod Rosenstein expand the FISA warrant? And if he did, he's the one that appointed Mueller. It seems so corrupt and incestuous to me at this point. How do we possibly make this right?
Well, only sunlight's going to make it better, only exposing it. You know, I find it curious that the FBI is saying, please don't release the names, don't release the names. We don't want to disparage all of the FBI. We want to highlight the people that are doing the wrong, and you call them out by name. That's how you get rid of those people. That's how you highlight the wrongdoing, and you make them accountable on this. And it's going to be the Inspector General that will come up on the heels of this and fill in even more of the blanks. We're only going to get 4 pages tomorrow, but then the Inspector General will come in
Felonies
too.
were committed, Tom Fitton. We have 20 seconds. And Comey, Page, Strzok, McCabe, and likely Loretta Lynch gave her a pass so she could stay in the race. True or false?
Well, that's what it looks like. And the question is whether the next step's going to be after this memo is released. Are we going to get the accountability we desire? Are we going to find out who did the unmasking, who did the leaking? This is just the tip of the iceberg and just one battle that needs to be fought for full accountability on this scandal of the century.
That's a very important point. Tomorrow, I'm told, is 10% of what's